UFC 254 will be headlined by the lightweight unification bout between interim champ Justin Gaethje and the champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. The UFC lightweight division is one of the deepest divisions in the history of the sport, and a title unification bout between Khabib and Justin highlights everything we love about MMA. An undefeated, relentless, and dominant champion putting his title on the line against a warrior that doesn't know the meaning of quit. There are very few fights that capture the attention and ire of the general public and the most hardcore fans, and this clash is definitely one of them. In this video, we will take a deeper look into the styles of both fighters and how they will match up against one another. First things first, let's take a look at the tail of the tape for this fight. The champion Khabib Nurmagomedov is 5 foot 10 inches tall, while Justin Gaethje is only 1 inch taller at 5 foot 11 inches. Khabib sports a reach of 70 inches, while Justin is not that far off with a reach of 71 inches. The Eagle has a finish rate of 64%, while Justin Gaethje has an astonishing finish rate of 91%. Now, let's take a brief look at the fighting styles of both champions. By now, the entirety of the world knows Khabib's fighting style. Donning a judo black belt and master of sport titles in sambo, pankration, and hand-to-hand combat, Khabib is unmatched in the octagon when it comes to grappling. Time and time again, we've seen men crumble under the sheer pressure and strength of Khabib. Though wrestling and grappling is Khabib's strong suit, there's a reason he's in a completely different league when it comes to his peers. Most fighters who implement this style like to do so in the middle of the octagon, but the Eagle does his work up against the cage. The cage is usually seen as an advantage for the fighter defending the takedown, but Khabib has adjusted his style to thrive there. We've seen tons of dominant wrestlers in the sport, but we can honestly say we have never seen a force like Khabib. Gaethje, on the other hand, is a completely different style of fighter. Like his nickname suggests, Gaethje is a highlight machine. Win or lose, Justin knows one thing: to put it all out there in the octagon and put on a show. Justin's career began as a wrestler from the age of 4 all the way up to his college days. Along the way, he's won 2 state championships and is a Division I All-American wrestler. But his MMA career is the complete opposite. 19 of Gaethje's 22 wins have come by way of knockout or technical knockout. Under the tutelage of Trevor Whitman, Gaethje has become one of MMA's scariest knockout artists and has only been getting better since suffering his first 2 defeats. Gaethje is relentless on the feet, pouring on the pressure and striking at a rate of 7.74 significant strikes per minute. Combine that with the heart of a lion, most men do not leave the cage with their consciousness intact. I could talk about these guys for a long time, but if you want to see a more detailed breakdown of both fighters, check the links in the description below. Now, let's take a look at how both champions match up against one another across the board. Let's begin with grappling. It's not a secret here that Khabib has the advantage if this fight goes to the ground. Khabib is a 2-time Sambo world champion who's won all of his fights by taking his opponent to the ground and breaking their will. Khabib has landed 57 takedowns in his UFC career, which is second most all time in the lightweight rankings. With an average of 5.35 takedowns per 15 minutes and a takedown accuracy of 47%, Khabib's game plan going into this title fight is simple: take Gaethje down and destroy his will to fight. Khabib has a large arsenal of takedowns at his disposal. One of his favorite and most high percentage takedowns is his low single leg, which he's used in most of his fights successfully, including both of his championship defenses. This is his preferred takedown when in the center of the cage, as it helps close the distance, and even if the takedown is unsuccessful, he can push the opponent to the cage and transition into other takedowns. One of his favorite wrestling chains is switching from an attempted hip throw into an inside leg trip. Khabib's grappling doesn't end there. What he's most famous for is his ground and pound. He controls his opponents expertly on the ground, and once he has them there, they rarely ever get back up until the ref jumps in or the bell sounds. He popularized the move now known as the Dagestani handcuff, which is one of his bread and butter moves, along with the figure 4 around his opponent's legs. This puts Khabib in almost a sideways mount that gives him options: land strikes with the free hand, advance to mount if they turn on you, or attempt a rear naked choke if they turn away. 3 of his 4 UFC submissions are by rear naked choke. Takedowns and ground and pound are and always will be Khabib's game plan going into his fights. Unlike a lot of Khabib's other fights, this may be easier said than done. We know Justin as the highlight for a reason. He loves to stand and bang and put on a show. But something we haven't really seen in his UFC career is his wrestling credentials, but not because he doesn't have them. Gaethje was a Division I All-American wrestler before he began his MMA career. Although Gaethje doesn't use his wrestling for offense in the octagon, we've seen him primarily use it for defense. In the UFC, Gaethje has only been taken down 2 times in 7 UFC fights, good for a takedown defense percentage of 80%, and whenever Justin has been taken down, his average on bottom position is only 17 seconds, which is the 2nd lowest in lightweight history and 8th lowest in UFC history. Simply put, Gaethje is able to utilize his extensive wrestling knowledge to nullify his opponent's takedowns, and in the case he does get taken down, he doesn't spend much time on the mat. Gaethje is likely the strongest wrestler Habib will have ever faced in the UFC, and this will be the key factor in determining who wins the fight. Will Habib be able to take Gaethje down and break his will, or can Justin use his wrestling defense to keep this fight on the feet long enough to finish? Next, let's take a look at both fighters and the work they've been able to do while in the clinch. Both of these champions utilize the clinch effectively, but in very different ways. First, let's take a look at how Justin has used the clinch to become one of the best lightweights in the world. Justin's entire fighting style revolves around him being up close and personal with his opponents, and the clinch is one of the most effective tools in his arsenal. One of his favorite moves in the clinch is using his overhand right to land a heavy blow. In the clinch, Gaethje likes to grab a hold of his opponent's left hand, and when the time's right, he disengages with a heavy overhand right to land significant damage. The most unique aspect about Gaethje's clinch work is the use of his infamous leg kicks. Throughout his career, Justin has repeatedly thrown heavy leg kicks while in the tie clinch. He'll grab his opponent, put his weight down on them, and disengage from the clinch by turning his entire body and landing a huge leg kick. On top of that, Gaethje has deadly knees from the tie clinch as well, which is what he used to finish Michael Johnson. Gaethje throws every strike with devastating power, even from the clinch, and it shows. Habib is just as effective in the clinch, but utilizes it in a completely different manner. By taking small shots to the body and head, Habib tries preoccupying his opponent before he implements his true game plan. Habib has perfected the fundamentals of the clinch, from proper head and hip positioning to shifting his weight to off-balance his opponents, all in the attempt to get them on the ground. And once the fight goes to the mat, well, we know what happens next. The clinch will be a vital part of this fight for both fighters. If Justin can stay off the fence, use his wrestling defense, and land his damaging blows to Habib, we may finally see the zero disappear. But there's a reason no man has ever been able to best the eagle in MMA. If Habib can pin Gaethje up against the cage long enough to get him down, well, we may see the same old story. Finally, let's take a look at how both champions match up on the feet. The same way Habib has an advantage in the grappling department, Justin has the advantage in the striking department. Everyone watching this video can agree on one thing. There have been few fighters in the history of the UFC that have been as entertaining as Gaethje in the octagon. In just 7 UFC fights, Gaethje has accumulated $450,000 in performance bonuses. If you do the math, that's 9 bonuses in just 7 fights. Win or lose, the man shows up to put on a show for the fans. But this isn't based on luck or just raw strength. Justin is a brawler, but has evolved into a very technical powerhouse. Gaethje has been able to land at a rate of 7.72 significant strikes per minute, good for 2nd highest output in UFC history. When you partner that with a lightweight record of 59.5 significant strike accuracy, you can see why some of the best lightweights in UFC history have crumbled in front of the highlight. Not only does Gaethje land at a high rate, he also possesses some of the heaviest hands in the lightweight division. When he lands with conviction and pure power. Just ask James Vick or Edson Barboza. If he lands clean, anyone will go to sleep. One of Justin's most effective tools in his arsenal are his leg kicks. His constant, brutal, and powerful leg kicks. From the start of the fight to the end, Justin will always attack his opponent's leg and try to significantly damage them. It's something he's been able to successfully do in many of his bouts. These kicks damage his opponents and make them uncomfortable to the point where they have to switch from their preferred stance. With the threat of a damaging kick looming, fighters start to open up and leave their heads vulnerable, and that's when Gaethje has the opening to put his opponents to sleep. Gaethje will time his kicks well with his strikes. He often uses a very high guard and bobs and weaves to close the distance. Doing this, he can land hooks to the body or head, which are his most powerful and devastating strikes. Now, let's take a quick look at Habib and his stand-up. Although he may be at a significant disadvantage in this matchup, don't sleep on the ego. On the feet, Habib has been able to grow as a striker under the tutelage of Javier Mendez. This was evident in his fight against Iaquinta and his shocking staggering of Conor McGregor. But, as we have all come to know, most of Habib's striking comes on the ground. After the fight gets to the ground, Habib lands some of the most effective and brutal ground and pound ever seen in the UFC. This is highlighted by a striking differential of 2.15, good for third best in lightweight history. On the feet, Habib has one big advantage, which is that his opponents are always wary of the takedown. This means that he can feint a level change just to get his opponents to drop their hands to come up top, just like he did against McGregor. It's no secret that striking is Justin's path to victory. If he can attack Habib's legs early and stuff his takedowns, he might be the first man to make Habib bleed in the UFC. Gaethje has the power, technique, and heart to pull off the upset against the undefeated champion. And heart is what you need against a foe like this. On the other side, if Habib can impose his will on Gaethje like he has with all others, well, no one has yet come out on the other side of victor. This matchup provides a test like no other for the reigning undefeated champion. He has a challenger that is not only dangerous on the feet, but has the wrestling background to give him his toughest challenge to date. No matter how far this sport progresses, there's always something special about a striker versus a grappler, especially with the stakes so high. History is on the line for both fighters. With one more win, Habib will have the longest lightweight win streak at 13 and the most lightweight title wins at 4. And with the win at 254, Gaethje can go down as the only man to ever defeat the unstoppable Nurmagomedov. Whether you're a diehard fan of Khabib or a Gaethje maniac, there's one thing we can all agree upon. This will be a lightweight fight for the ages. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed our content, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.